Today we are super fortunate to have Kesha Brooks here with us, and she's going to talk a little bit about her path to her career in law and have some discussion with you about overcoming obstacles as you make your way through college. So thank you so much for being here and enjoy the presentation. Help yourself to pizza at any time.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad you took the opportunity to come here today and listen to me ramble. I'm going to try not to do that, but I'm prone to sometimes. So, if I start rambling too much, just say, you're rambling. As she mentioned, Attorney Wright, unfortunately, is not able to attend today. He had a deposition. He was called out of town that he had to do. But honestly, I am been given the privilege and honor to talk to you today about what I think is a really important topic, which is overcoming obstacles. And I'll do that in a little bit of a roundabout way, so just bear with me, okay? When Attorney Wright asked me to speak to you all today, I did what most type A personality types do. I took out my laptop and I started writing an outline because I wanted to make sure I gave you guys all the things in my head that I thought you should know. 5 pages in, I was like, well, this is probably a lot for them to absorb over lunch hour. And then what I realized is I hadn't listed any obstacles, none. I could not recall in the 5 pages that I wrote, I couldn't recall one obstacle I had over the prior, I'm not gonna tell you how many years of my life. But what I took from that is that a lot of times, it's not to say I didn't have obstacles, because of course I have. You can't live this life without having any obstacles. But what I took from that is that a lot of times we kind of forget about those obstacles we've had. We forget about the strife. We forget about the challenges once we've overcome them. We want to kind of move that to the side for whatever reasons. Maybe it was too painful to address again. Maybe it was such a detrimental time in your life that you don't want to remember. But what I would challenge you guys to do and what I had to do for this moment was to remember those obstacles and those challenges that you've had, because they shape the things and the way you handle situations in the present, in the future, present and future. So as you see at your desk, I've given you an envelope, a piece of paper, and a pen. At the top of your paper, I would like for you to write the date, okay? Write today's date at the top of your paper. Then I want you to think about a past obstacle that you've had, that you've overcome, or I want you to think about a current obstacle that you're currently in that you want to overcome, okay? So a past obstacle that you already had, that you overcame, or a current obstacle that you're in and you want to overcome. Now, think about that, take your time, write it down, you got some time. And while you're doing that, I'm gonna tell you a little bit more about myself and my background. As the dean mentioned, my name is Attorney Kesha Brooks, and I'm an attorney at Wright & Schulte Law Firm. I practice in the areas of medical malpractice, personal injury, wrongful death, and I also do some lower level criminal work, which I was in court this morning before I came here. So I have the esteemed obligation and opportunity to affect the lives of people every single day. I meet people sometimes at their lowest points in their life. They've lost a loved one, they failed to have been diagnosed with cancer, they're on trial for domestic violence or an OVI, all those type of things. And every single day I am honored to have that pleasure because it's something that I hold dear, which is helping others. One of the things about me that I love for people to know is that I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. You guys know what that means? Who knows? That is right. I am a diehard, unapologetic Steelers fan. So don't hold that against me for the rest of the presentation. But yeah, I'm from Pittsburgh. I was born and raised. I don't know if you've ever been to Pittsburgh before, but it's a city like Cincinnati and Dayton, very comparable. And I lived in a pretty urban area. It was a very typical area, similar to the urban areas here in Cincinnati and Dayton. I was raised by my grandmother and my aunt. That's a little bit untraditional, probably for the first 10 years of my life. But I think I had a pretty simple, humble background. When I was about 10 or 11 years old, I moved to Los Angeles, California. Now you can imagine being a child from East Coast, very slow kind of going place, to Los Angeles, like this mecca, this thriving metropolitan area, it was a little bit different. And not only was it different in just the area, but it was also different in the diversity. And what I mean by that is, even though Los Angeles itself is very diverse, I mean, every day you're going to run into people of all different nationalities and ethnicities. But my parents chose, my mom and my stepdad, because I moved to Los Angeles to live with my mom and my stepdad, they chose to send me to a Catholic school. Nothing wrong with that. A Catholic school, I was the only African-American student out of probably about 600 students. The only. So much so, and I'll go on a little tangent to tell you this, it was probably about in the 8th grade, we had to take photos for the yearbook. So everyone had taken their 8th grade photos and everything, and it was the day that we were supposed to get them all back, and I go into the office to grab mine, and they're not there. My photos aren't there. They're only ones that weren't there. So, the principal, she calls the photography studio, and she says, hey, we're missing one of our students' photographs. And they're looking, and they're like, well, they're not there. We don't have them. And she was like, yes, you do. You came, you took her photos. Well, I was the only black child, so they thought it had got mixed up. So they sent the photos to another school that they had done simultaneous to that school because they thought she couldn't possibly have been in this array or lineup. So that was kind of the environment that I was in. But I don't say that as a negative because I have had the great opportunity to experience life from a lot of different spectrums, okay? And this is my tangent. I have been to all predominantly black schools, and I've been to schools where I've been the only black. And I love both of those experiences because they make me who I am today. And I met all of those challenges and obstacles with the same vigor that I meet anything else in my life. Now, when I think back to that moment in my life, you would think that I'd be able to tell you like, oh my God, I had all these obstacles and this is how I overcame, but I don't remember any. I just remember having a very normal childhood. I really can't recall those obstacles. But what I do remember from that point in my life is that it was the first time that I got motivated. Something motivated me. And I'm going to tell you what that motivation was. My mom was is an amazing woman. She was always a stay-at-home mom. She took very good care of me. She took care of the household. She was amazing by all standards of people who choose that as their career, because I think it's a career. You do a lot. It's a lot to shuffle kids all over the place and things like that. My stepdad, however, was a computer engineer. He paid the bills. He kind of ran the household in a sense, and he was the dominant one in the household. He was the force. He was that. And for me, whenever I saw that, I wanted to be that. That was what I wanted to be. So I wanted to be that independent, that self-sufficient, that dominant, that person who's in charge of the household, in charge of your life, that I wanted to be that person. And that was the first time in my life that I got some motivation. I'm like, this is what this looks like. To be self-sufficient and independent and to take charge and, to have this professional thing. And I wanted that for myself. So, as anyone does, you think, oh, okay, I want that. Well, what does that look like? I had never seen that before. None of my family members had been to college. I was the second person in my family to go to college. My Aunt Lisa had went, but she was going during the time I'm in my high school years, so I really didn't know too much about that. So I didn't have an example, put it that way. So I started reaching out to people at school, and I will candidly say I was not the best student. I was smart, and I was articulate, but I just didn't have a purpose. I didn't have a motivation. I wasn't a bad student. I mean, I literally I'd go to school, I'd get decent grades, people liked me, stuff like that, but I didn't have a motivation. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I used to always say I wanted to be a lawyer, but I hadn't put any actions to that, and I didn't really know if that was even a real thing, or I just seen Perry Mason. Y'all too young to know who Perry Mason is. I seen Perry Mason, I was like, yep, that's me, that's what I want to do. So I started talking to some academic counselors at the school and other people, and they were saying, well, you got to go to college. Because at that point in time, college was it. That's what they were telling people. You got to go to college. To do anything in this world, to be great, to make money, to take care of yourself, you got to go to college because that's the only way. And of course, I thought about that. I was like, okay, I got to go to college. Well, of course I got to go to college because to go to college would mean I would be able to get that good job, which means I would be able to make that good money, which means I would be able to be self-sufficient and independent and be my own person. And I wanted that. So I started to look for everything I needed to do that. I started to get better grades. I started to apply myself. I was getting better grades, and 2 years later, here I am. 2 years later, I was in college. And like I mentioned earlier, my aunt went to college. She actually went to college here in Ohio at Wilberforce University. Does anyone know where Wilberforce University is? Anyone? For those who don't know, Wilberforce is an HBCU, a historically black university. So mostly all black people attend Wilberforce. There's a few faculty and staff whose kids attend there too, but for the most part, it's a black school. My aunt went to Wilberforce, and so I decided to follow in her footsteps, and I went to Wilberforce. And Wilberforce was a great experience for me. I really, really grew as a person. It was the first time, now imagine this. I lived in California, and I went all the way from California to Ohio. Now, the good thing for me is I did have family in Pennsylvania, so it was just a hop, skip, and a jump to go there. But really, they dropped me off in the middle of the cornfields. I probably had never seen cornfields until that day. They dropped me off, and they said, hey, do great things, and that was it. And so now I'm on my own. I'm trying to be self-sufficient. I got a little job on campus. I joined the forensic speech and debate team. I joined the SGA. I met a lot of really great people that I'm still friends with today. I joined a sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And I really grew as a person. It was probably the first time I'd been on my own, first time I was taking care of myself. And the feeling of being independent, I really loved that. So that kind of ties back into what my first motivation was, is that I said I wanted to be self-sufficient and independent, right? So it was an era for me of true personal growth. I graduated from Wilberforce in 1998, so I was able to accomplish that. Now, and when I graduated, my goal at that time, and I'm not saying my motivation, my goal at that time was I wanted to go to law school, because I told you I had always wanted to be a lawyer. So I planned on, during the summer, I'm going to take these LSAT classes, and I'm going to study, and I'm going to get this high score, and I'm going to get this scholarship, and I'm going to go to law school, and had all these things. And then life was like, hold on. So after I graduated, I had a son. About 4 months after graduation, I had a child. And, I don't know, how many of you are parents? Any parents? Raise your hand. Proud parents. Okay, so we have a few parents in here. I became a parent. And sometimes when you become a parent, your goals in life, your goals and your desires, they shift, right? Because now something different motivates you. So what I'll say in this moment was that this was like my second motivation that I got in my life. My second motivation was when I had my son, and I decided that what motivates me in this moment is I want to be the best parent and raise the best human being I could possibly raise. And that task was a little daunting at times because I was a single parent. So not only am I a new graduate thinking about going to law school, now I'm a single parent, now I got to find a job, now I got to work, now I got to support me, now I got to support him. It was a lot. You're talking about obstacles and overcoming. It was a lot for me at that moment. But what I'll tell you is that you're able to do it. Being a single parent, you have to find balances. You have to balance your personal desires with your job as a parent, because really being a parent is a job. It's something that you have to take on that way, and that's what I did. So in that moment, I worked 2 jobs. I raised my son the best way I could. And was there struggle? Oh my God, yes. And I don't even remember them all, but I just remember I'm still here, so I must have survived them. There were good times, there were bad times, there were emotional times, there were all those things. And then one day, I'm at work, and I meet this lady named Nancy. I'm new to wearing glasses, by the way, so just know when I keep taking them on and off, it's because that. And I can't see you when I take them off, so that's why I put them back on. But anyway, I met this lady at my job, and her name was Nancy. And Nancy asked me one day, we were sitting at lunch, and she said, well, what motivates you? And that was a really odd question. Now, this is probably about 7 years later, so my son would have to be about 7 years old, 7 or 8. She was like, well, what motivates you? And I was like, no one in my life had ever asked me that. Not one time. No one. No one had ever asked me what motivates me. It had always been me motivating me figuring out what motivated me. And at that moment when she asked, I realized it had been 7 years since I asked myself that. I had not asked myself that over the last 7 years because I dedicated myself to being a parent and trying to do that the best I could. And so I put other things on the shelf. So I went home that night and I thought about that and I said, wow, like I don't know what motivates me. So, and that kind of weighed heavy on me because I'd never been a person without motivation. So I did what a lot of people do. I don't know if you do this, but I am a list person. When in times of stress, strife, or uncertainty, I take out a piece of paper and I just write things down. I mean, I write all types of stuff. You'll find all types of lists at my house. My son says that I am like a sticky junkie. You'll find lists. When I need to figure out a plan for something, I write a list. When I'm about to go on vacation and I want to make sure I don't miss anything, I write a list of all the things I'm going to need. I write grocery lists. I write lists like my outline here. That's also considered a list. I write lists. So that's what I did that night. I wrote a list. And on my list, I put what motivates me, what I wanted to achieve, and how I could do it. All in that one night. Like I literally just wrote down a whole bunch of stuff. And the next day I woke up and there was all these things and I was able to categorize them and I had like a plan. Like that easily. I wrote a list. I put everything down that I was thinking. I was able to generate that into a plan. And what I learned in that moment is that sometimes we become stagnant. You know what stagnant means, right? Sometimes we become stagnant and we lose focus of the things we want to accomplish because everyday life gets in the way. That sounds crazy, but everyday life gets in the way. And for me, what got in my way, and this, I know that sounds like a bad way to put it, but what deterred me or derailed me a little bit was that I had a child and I focused solely on that, which sometimes you have to do, but other times they're not mutually exclusive. They're not mutually exclusive. Like you can do both things at the same time. And that's what I was realizing. I come up my fog. And I call this moment in my life the awakening. That's what I call it, because that's how it felt to me. Like I woke up the next day and I just felt new. And I just felt all these possibilities were right there in front of me and all I had to do was go take it. And I lived my life like that for a long time. Probably about 6 months after that conversation with Nancy, I was working as a branch manager at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Probably 6 months after that, I quit my job and I went into a master's program for public administration because I always thought I wanted to be a people's lawyer. So I'm going to get this master's in public administration and learn how this thing works, how the government works and how the administration and all this type of stuff. Then I'm going to go to law school and I'm going to be some kind of pro bono lawyer. Or I'm going to be, a lawyer at the city level. And that was my thought process and that was my goal. And that's how I handled everything. And, I quit my job, as I said. I started a master's program. It was not easy. It really wasn't, because even though I had put some thought into it, man, there were so many things that I hadn't considered, so many obstacles that were laid at my feet every single day that I hadn't thought about prior to that. So it wasn't an easy thing. I had to make some adjustments. And sometimes you have to make those short-term sacrifices for a long-term gain, and you hope it's gain. And in this particular time in my life, it actually was. So I actually did benefit from that. But what I also realized was that I was kind of my worst enemy. I realized that some of the biggest obstacles that we face are internal. They're us telling us that we can't do something, or we're not able to do this, or this was not meant for us. We're kind of sometimes our biggest barriers to success. And it dawned on me that instead of looking at obstacles and success in terms of what we can't do or what we can't accomplish, I was looking at it the wrong way. So I started asking myself, what was I willing to do to accomplish my goals? And I'm going to say that again. What was I willing to do to accomplish my goals? Okay? And often I have conversations with myself. I know that's frowned upon, but I think it's important and it's okay. So if you have conversations with yourself, it's fine. But I had that conversation with myself, and these are the things that I came up with. Remember, I'm in my master's program. So I told myself that I was willing to work hard. I was willing to study, put in the late hours and early hours it took, sacrifice the cushy lifestyle that I had before, and do things outside of my comfort zone, meet and network with people, and go out and talk to people and get their experience of life, try new experiences, and most importantly, and this is what I found most importantly, because I struggle with this and I still struggle with this, most importantly, not to be so hard on myself when things do not go as planned. Because that's how we get into the mindset of, I can't do this. We get so much in our head that we're not able to see, the things that we really are able to accomplish because we're our worst enemy, because we're so hard on ourselves. There's always tomorrow. You don't have to accomplish every single thing today. So those were the things that I told myself. And with that plan, honestly, that simple plan has taken me through this day. I went on to achieve my master's degree in 2005, and then I had a pretty good career for 10 years where I was a director of development communications, and I also had a business for 10 years where I did graphic design, strategic planning, and grant writing. And then I was able to get my law degree in 2015. So that's kind of where my career path went. Now, I won't talk too much about law school, but what I will say is, if any of you are considering going to law school, just know it is definitely as hard as they say that it is, and then times that by 10. But the good thing about that is, I am here as a living testimony that if I can accomplish that, so can any one of you in this room, as long as you do the things necessary to achieve that goal. What are you willing to do? That's what you always have to ask yourself when you're facing an obstacle. What are you willing to do to overcome it? Now, I want to skip to present day, because as you may recall, I've given you, how many motivations have I given you so far that I went through personally? What was my first one? Does anyone remember? First thing I said I was motivated by. Independence and self-sufficiency. Anybody remember the second thing I said I was motivated by? That's right, my son. I was motivated by being the best parent I could be to him and raising the best human being he could be. Now, what I realized while putting this presentation together for you guys is I am currently in my third motivational phase that I can recall. And honestly, it may be the biggest of them all. Not to say raising a child is not, but I'm done raising him. Well, you're never done. He's 19, he's in college, he's all right for right now. I can put him to the side a little bit. So I'm kind of in my biggest of all, which is, as a lawyer, I want to be the best lawyer I can be. I want to be the most helpful I can be. And my desire and motivation in this moment is to be the most skilled, knowledgeable, helpful, and resourceful lawyer I can be. That's what motivates me right now. Because as a lawyer, the decisions you make not only affect you, they affect your client and sometimes their family. It is a big responsibility that I do not take lightly. As I stated earlier, I started practicing law in 2016. I have had the esteemed pleasure of working along with a side-by-side by attorney Michael Wright and also attorney Robert Gresham. They have been amazing mentors, and they've really helped me to grow as an attorney. When I first started, it was very exciting, right? I was happy to finally be doing this one thing that I always dreamed about doing, but of course, obstacles and challenges, they don't fade away once you've accomplished one goal. They're always there, and that's another takeaway I want you to get from this is that once you achieve or you overcome an obstacle, you might have another one right in your path. And the good thing about that, the good thing about that is that once you've achieved one, you know the route to be able to achieve the other one. It may be a different situation, but you can apply some of the same fundamental things you did to achieve that one to also achieve this one. And you have those tools in your arsenal. You just have to use them. So as I said, right now in my current challenge as a lawyer, new career, navigating through something completely unfamiliar to me, learning how to practice and be the best attorney I can be. So I thought about that today and how I would tackle this particular obstacle in my life, and I kind of want to share those things with you, so this will be something maybe you can apply to tackle whatever obstacles you're facing, okay? You ready? So the first thing, you guys probably should already know, because I'm going to talk it to death. What motivates you? I think that's one of the most important things that you can think about. What motivates you? In this moment, with this obstacle in front of you, what is your motivation to get from this side of the obstacle to the other side? What is your motivation? And that's a personal thing. You have to know that for yourself. No one can help you with that. That's a personal search and struggle, something you have to think about. That's the first thing. The second thing is setting goals. You can't get anywhere unless you know how to get there, unless you plan to get there, unless you put action steps in place to be able to get there. That's just important. So when you're setting goals, the first thing that you have to be is realistic. You have to be realistic in your goal setting. And you know what that takes me back to? Asking yourself, what are you willing to do to get there? What are the things you're willing to do? Let's take my example. What I tell you earlier, my desire is to be the most skilled, knowledgeable, and resourceful attorney that I can be, right? So what are the things I have to do to be able to get there? I'll share a little bit of those things, some things I've been doing. I put in long hours. Sometimes I get up early, I'm there before anyone. Sometimes I stay late, I'm there after everyone. Sometimes I'm there on Saturdays. Sometimes I'm there on Sundays. I am not obligated to do any of those things. My boss, Attorney Wright, is great. He doesn't really dictate my schedule. I do that because personally, I want to be great. I want to be great and knowledgeable and respected in my field, so I put in the time. That's what I do. I am willing to put in the time. I am also willing to spend Saturdays on learning sessions or attend CLEs to learn different types of law, learn different things that come out, different all types of stuff. And that's important because I want to be knowledgeable and resourceful. When a client comes to me and says they have this issue, I want to be able to address it, and I want to be able to have the answers for them because that's what they look for. And that's what I am willing to do. Another thing I'm willing to do is I go out and I go to these networking events, lots of networking events. I go and speak sometimes. I go and, maybe to high schools, or sometimes I go back to my alma mater, Wilberforce, and I just sit on campus and talk to students. I want to network and I want to be of value to others. So that is something that I do. It's another way to get myself out there. It's another way to be known in the community, and it's another way for people to know, oh, you know what? I did see Attorney Brooks at Wilberforce, and I had her card. I can call her at a moment that I need something. So those are all the things that I'm willing to do. And for you, the choice is yours. On my way here, I started a motivational tape. I've been listening to it on and off. I can't tell you the title. It's kind of vulgar, but it's great. I'll tell you about it afterwards. But and it talks about just that. What are you willing to do? Sometimes you just have to put the onus on yourself. It's all up to you. I really, truly, and honestly believe that anything you want to accomplish in this life is just action steps and action away from doing it. I believe that you can do it. It's just what you're willing to do in order to get there. The next thing is ask for help when needed. You're not alone. This is not a solo journey. And oh my goodness, I had to learn this the hard way because I am not the person to ask for help. I am always the person who wants to do it all on their own. Don't do that. Get a mentor. Surround yourself with people who are support, because I think that that's important. The next thing is don't forget to take care of yourself. And I think that's as important as well. Things in this life will overwhelm you. And sometimes you have to regroup and postpone. And I'm going to say that again. You have to regroup and postpone. Look at me. I graduated from college 20 years ago, and I didn't become a lawyer until 2 years ago. So what I want you to know from that is that delayed does not mean denied. So just because you have to delay something doesn't necessarily mean that's not for you. Maybe it's just not your time at that moment. But if it's something important, you'll find a way to get there, just like I did. And that brings me to my next point, is that don't be afraid to course correct. Don't be afraid if something is not working out, or if you thought you wanted one thing and you're working towards it and you find that's not what motivates you anymore, find new motivation and course correct. Because sometimes we're so in it so deep that we're like, oh, no, I already started this. I can't stop now. Well, yeah, you can, especially if it's something that is not fulfilling you and it's something you really don't want to do. Don't be afraid to go out on a leap of faith and do something differently. And last, be a help to others. And I can't stress that enough. And I know you're like, oh my goodness, I am in my obstacle. I'm going through my strife, and you're telling me to reach out and be a help to others. Yeah, I am. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because it's amazing how much you learn about yourself when you open yourself up to be help to others. Share with them your past successes, your past failures, what motivates you, and also how you've overcome those obstacles in your life. And you will be amazing how much you find out about yourself and your current obstacle that you're in. Now, earlier I had you guys write down either an obstacle that you had been through in the past and overcome, or a current obstacle that you're in. I want you to fold that piece of paper up. I want you to put it in the envelope. I want you to seal the envelope, and I want you to put your name on the outside of it. So put it in the envelope and write your name on it. And why am I having you do this? 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you're going to be in a moment where you have an obstacle that is so monumental ahead of you, you're not going to know what to do. You're going to think, this is it. This is the one thing that I'm never going to be able to come. This is the one thing that I'm never going to be able to get over. Or, like me, you're going to find yourself on a Monday and your boss says, hey, I have a deposition. I need you to go and speak to some students and tell them about overcoming obstacles. And you're already going to be ahead of the game. Because why? You're going to pull this out of whatever drawer, whatever backpack, whatever safe you keep it in, and you're going to read it, And that's either going to motivate you to remember how you were able to overcome that particular obstacle and how you got through and apply those things to your current obstacle, or it's going to help you to help someone else when you have to go and speak to the high school students, or you have to speak to a sibling about obstacles, or you have to talk to someone else about how they can overcome. And that's why I'm having you write that down. And that's not a meaningless gesture. I really do think that this is something that you can pull out years from now, and it'll be something that'll help you. All right, well, thank you guys for coming.